they turn around Zain Africa as a whole?
Right, Sajid. Vivek, this is Siddharth Zarabi. If I could ask you a couple of questions. The first one being Bharti has consistently made out the fact that it will adopt or utilize its low-cost model, supplant it on the Zain Africa, the 15-country operations that we are talking about, and derive cost synergies. Given the challenging nature of the African market, and if you look at the Zain presentation, the last available on its website as of September 2009, we are looking at market shares of between 15 to 60%, barring one country, Gabon, where the market share was almost 130%. Don't you think that the cost challenges in terms of ramping up the network and reaching a situation where it can overtake and compete strongly with MTN will not really mean that these cost synergies can be derived as easily as is being made out?
So deriving cost synergies is not easy. And as I said earlier, the success of this deal is predicated on deriving those cost synergies. But we must remember one thing. Bharti is an extremely efficient animal. Bharti thrives in an environment where it can derive efficiencies on the cost front and work on high volumes. So I think if anyone can crack the code, it is Bharti. In my mind, this is clearly a long-term buy. You're absolutely right in saying that initially they will have to fight for market share, they will have to ramp up network and so on. But I think over a secular period of time, if the Bharti model can work successfully here, and the Bharti model very clearly, as is shown in India, is a very efficient, cost savings-based model, then I think this is a good deal. For a company like Bharti, actually, I think there is no choice. With the Indian markets getting so saturated and with the Indian markets seeing so much competition, it has to expand its learnings, it has to expand its network outside India, which is what they are trying to do. So in my mind, if anyone can derive this, if anyone can turn Zain around, if anyone can see the EBITDA expansion as a result of the cost synergies, I think it is Bharti.
Vivek, one quick question. Do you think this is the end of Bharti's ambitions with regard to overseas buyouts?
Well, so this is a large animal that they're trying to swallow. $10 billion deal on a $25 billion market cap. I think Bharti will take some time integrating it. They may do some incremental, smallish acquisitions, but from a large asset standpoint, I think the management energies will be focused on trying to integrate this and trying to make this acquisition work.
All right, Vivek, thank you very much. Shireen, a couple of points more, news that is just coming in. One, the possibility of the deal closure happening perhaps in a week or thereabout. And the second really big thing, if you look at it from what is being said, there will perhaps be a management change very soon. We don't know who will spearhead the operations, but it is I think a clear, definite that Manoj Kohli will have a driver's seat position and possibly Sunil Mittal also to assume a key role, possibly as the chairman of the board. But again, no confirmations on that point, both these points at this point of time. So possibly a deal closure happening in a week or perhaps a couple of weeks after that. But clearly, April is perhaps the month when all of it will be finally completed. Shireen?
All right, April finally completed, and perhaps we could see Manoj Kohli and Sunil Mittal being in the driver's seat as far as this combined entity is concerned. Akhil Irani, managing partner at Majmudar and Company, joins us. Akhil, many thanks for joining us. Structure, no clarity, deal finally done, and closure likely, as Siddharth was pointing out, in about a week or so. What do you make of it?
Frankly, Shireen, it sounds too good to be true. When you're looking at different jurisdictions in the African continent, I'm sure there are regulatory clearances that would be required in most of these jurisdictions, and so deal closure in a week or two is really too good to be true, unless, of course, they've done a lot of the spade work and the groundwork before even signing the agreement that has been announced today. And they probably have some sort of in-principle approvals from the regulatory authorities in all of these countries. So except for that scenario, it's not going to be easy.
It's not going to be easy, says Akhil Hirani. Let's go across to Chris Bishop of CNBC Africa. He joins us. Chris, many thanks for joining us on CNBC TV 18. Concerns really on getting regulatory approvals from these 15 countries that Bharti will acquire as part of the Zain operations. What are you picking up on the regulatory approvals at this point in time?
Well, the one thing we picked up is that the small West African nation of Gabon, which is one of 15 countries that Zain operates in, is saying that it wants the deal suspended and reserves the right to take all necessary measures. Now, it's saying that Zain Gabon, which holds something like 60% of the market in Gabon, has not complied with telecoms regulations. And the telecoms regulator in Gabon will review the sale of the process. That is the word from Libreville tonight.
And what about Nigeria, Chris? What are you picking up from Nigeria and Ecotel Wireless?
Well, it's very interesting, actually, because some of the analysts I spoke to here in the wake of the deal, they were saying that what the Bharti strategy is likely to be in Africa is to get the cheapest minute possible to African customers, so it can clean up the competition, so it can expand and make money. Now, what some of the analysts here in Johannesburg are saying, well, it's not quite that simple in Africa, because in Nigeria, there is no sharing of networks. It's something that's never talked about, was the exact words that were used to me, whereas in South Africa it is. But in Nigeria there isn't. So it's going to be quite expensive to get into the market. You have to come up with your own network. There's going to be a massive capital investment, again, which is going to make it very difficult for them to undercut the competition that's already there and operating.
Okay. Akhil Hirani, let me come back to you. As Chris Bishop was just pointing out, and this has been reported over the last 24 hours, the opposition to this deal coming in from one of the 15 countries, namely Gabon. You think this agreement would have been made public, would have been initialed if indeed both Bharti and Zain did not have enough clarity on how to be able to tackle that situation in Gabon?
That's a tricky question. What I think may have happened is that if, I think that 14 countries and 14 telecom regulators were in agreement, but there was indication that the telecom regulator in Gabon may have an issue with this, then probably the agreement would be structured in such a way that if for any reason the Gabon approval didn't come through, then perhaps the deal could be reconfigured and restructured so as to cover 14 jurisdictions. So try and have some sort of a carve-out for any tricky jurisdictions that cannot be resolved. So that could be a feature of the agreement.
Chris Bishop, where do we go from here? Because what we are picking up from our sources is that the deal closure will perhaps take about a week or 2 weeks, given the regulatory obstacles on account of, Gabon. What are you picking up in terms of the final deal closure and, the steps or the process from here on?
Well, what I did ask the analysts here when we were talking earlier was that can this Gabon objection, can it halt this deal? And they said, well, in a word, yes. But having said that, with a deal of this magnitude, and we're talking now, was it more than $9 billion deal, etc. This is a very, very big fish in the continent. Whether or not Gabon maybe could be persuaded in quite a short matter of time is another question. And I think that now it's up to the authorities in Gabon to say exactly what the position is and to say, to carry out their investigation and tie up the loose ends.
All right, Chris Bishop, many thanks for joining us from CNBC Africa with those details. Siddharth Zarabi, back to you now. What are you picking up in terms of the process from here on?
Before I talk about the process, really, if I could talk about what is this network that Bharti is acquiring, and this is quite interesting. Some of the names many of us won't have even heard of, the 15 countries, but I'll just take you through all of them. Burkina Faso, Chad, Congo B, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Gabon, Kenya, Zambia, Madagascar, Sierra Leone, Malawi, Niger, Nigeria, Tanzania, Uganda and Ghana. But what is the key thing? They are 15 diverse markets, they are 15 different regulatory and policy environments, but this is one unified network really, and this is quite surprising considering the Indian standpoint, where we still, despite having one federal structure, the voice calls are still done on a long distance chargeable basis. The entire network it treats all calls as local calls. All incoming calls are free of charge. Voicemail and local services can be used free of charge. All postpaid and prepaid subscribers can also charge from anywhere. So clearly this is in technical terms and much of these networks are based on the latest Ericsson technology. Several